Okay, guys. Looking at the Alchemist, first we have the prologue, and in the prologue is when we are introduced to the Alchemist, which is interesting because we don't see him again for a really long time, and for the rest of the novel. So the book obviously is titled The Alchemist. We're introduced to the Alchemist in the prologue, and then he is not mentioned again for quite some time. And in the prologue, what Coelho is doing is setting up, not really giving you any kind of character development into who the Alchemist is, but setting up his method of teaching, setting up his style of teaching. And he uses the story of Narcissus and kind of has his own spin on it, which is actually pretty interesting as well. And Narcissus, for those of you that may or may not know, is a mythological character that was supposedly so handsome and so physically perfect that he fell in love with himself, and he drowned himself looking at his own reflection in a pond, trying to get further and touch his reflection because he was so taken with his own beauty. And what we have here with the prologue and what Coelho is doing is using personification with the lake, and having the lake say that the lake never really noticed how beautiful Narcissus was, and the lake was saddened at the loss of Narcissus. But the main reason that he was sad is because because every day when Narcissus came to look at his own reflection, the lake could do nothing but stare into Narcissus' eyes to see the lake's reflection back. So you have this kind of this very strange relationship between Narcissus and the lake, and we see that the lake is just as narcissistic and just as vain and just in love with his own reflection as Narcissus was. But it was Narcissus that drowned. And we see the Alchemist. He says, "Oh, what an interesting story," and it is an interesting story, and it's an interesting spin on the subject, because taking that classical mythology and kind of turning it on its head, and the way that Coelho is setting up this novel is teaching his philosophies, his life lessons, but he's doing it with a kind of supposedly this is more of a new age, I guess, type of book, more new age philosophies and stuff, but he's using a teaching method that is very, very old and very biblical, because he teaches all of his lessons. He has a lot to say. He has a lot to impart to the reader, or he thinks he does, and he does that. Excuse me, guys. He does that by not simply just telling the reader, do this, don't do this, or this is the moral of the story, etc. What he does is simply tell stories. He tells parables. And the lessons are interwoven into the stories. So you can kind of gather from the story as much of a lesson as you'd like, if you gather anything. And if you read the New Testament, this is what Jesus did. Very, very rarely, if you go back and read the Gospels, very rarely will you see that Jesus answered a direct question. Most of the time, when Jesus was asked something, or when Jesus was trying to teach people, he didn't go Old Testament. One of the big things again that marks the Old Testament versus the New Testament. In the Old Testament, we had the Ten Commandments: do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. And in the New Testament, we had stories. And these stories, and that's arguably one of the reasons that the Bible, the New Testament, is such a has been such a effective tool, because stories, they can transcend culture and language, and like I said, cultural biases and prejudices, and there's a lot more to be gathered through stories or lessons that are told through story than simply just giving someone a set of rules. Just like the saying, or that teach a man or give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he will eat for the rest of his life. Something so cliche and simple as that has meaning and is a good story. Was a story that has been boiled down to just a saying now, but it's true, and it's still around, and people still use that phrase, that saying, all the time, because it is applicable to so many situations and to anyone, rather than simply just saying, don't give someone something, teach someone something. So that is what Coelho does throughout the novel, and he, like I said, uses these stories to teach lessons, and they have the ability to kind of stick with you, and kind of the more you think about them, the more that you can learn, or the deeper you can understand, or the more thoroughly you can understand what Coelho is trying to say to the audience and to the reader. So that's what we've got for the prologue, and we are going to be getting straight into the novel here soon.